Hey, fans of literature, Walter Bowne here, talking about William Faulkner, A Rose for Emily. Now, William Faulkner's short story, very famous short story, uh, is a very good starting place for William Faulkner. Yeah, you can get to Sound and the Fury, Absalom, Absalom, but let's start with William Faulkner, A Rose for Emily. It's a very good starting place. What we have here is a classic non-linear narrative. Okay, so if you like pulp fiction or movies that start at the end and work their way in some sort of like Westworld fashion, Rose Family is a classic example. We start with her death, right? When Miss Emily Grierson died, our whole town. Wait a second, our whole town? So what we have here is a collective third person. It is the town telling the story. Our whole town went to the funeral. The men, respectful affectation for a fallen monument. So here we have Southern gentlemen, out of respect, going to a monument that has fallen. Right? So when we talk about the South and the South's love of monuments, and especially Civil War monuments, yeah, we can be critical, blah, 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 right? It makes sense sometimes, I guess. However, here we have a society that is always looking into the past. So right away, William Faulkner, a Southerner, writing about his fictional Jefferson here, is talking about the South and about Miss Emily Gerson being one of these monuments. And the women went to see her as a curiosity. They just want to see inside of her house. All right, so there it shows a little bit of satire on the women. They went to the funeral, but they really just want to see the inside of her house because no one has been inside of this house for a long, long time. And they just wanted to see what it looked like. And of course, wait till we see what it looks like at the end. Of course, if you read the whole story, it's like, oh my goodness, mic drop, that was crazy. Right. So here we have a story told in a non-linear fashion. All right. If I told you, or if William Faulkner wrote it, where Emily Grierson meets a guy named Homer Barron, a Yankee that no one likes because A, he's a Yankee, and number two, he's a day laborer, right? They aren't day laborers, right? These are kind of like snobs, but the town had fallen out of fashion, so they're still holding on to some sort of like snob factor, right? But she meets Homer, right? And then she buys rat poison. He disappears. There's a smell. All right, obviously she killed him. But it doesn't work that way in this story because memory doesn't work this way. All right. When you go through a day, your mind is going all over the place. It goes back to when you were little, it goes back to a few weeks ago, it goes back to yesterday, it flashes forward to current. So the mind is working, the memory is working in a nonlinear fashion. Our day goes by in a linear fashion, chronological fashion. We might place our essay topics, let me talk to you about my day, and let's start this morning, and then we go through the night. But the town is in itself telling the story out of respect, and we can think of a rose for Emily as being here, we are going to give a rose to Emily like you would give flowers to the dead, or a rose like maybe a resurrection kind of thing. So there's lots of interpretations of what a rose for Emily means. All right, so let's take a look right here on this first brilliant second paragraph, or everything William Faulkner writes is brilliant, of course, here, about the house. It had once been white, all right, decorated with cupolas and spires and scrolled balconies and lightsome manner of the 70s. And here we have, but now these once beautiful southern mansions are now filled with garages and cotton gins, encroached and obliterated. The august names of the neighborhood, all the great names. Now there's just Emily's house left, right, as a monument. And it lifts its stubborn, again, personification and coquettish. Someone who's a coquette is someone who teases decay above the cotton wagons and gasoline pumps. It was an eyesore among eyesores. And now Miss Emily had gone to join the representatives of those august names where they lay in the cedar bemused cemetery, the cedar trees. Um, and that word bemused is interesting. It has like an amusement, cedar bemused. So it has lots of connotations here among the rank and anonymous graves of Union and Confederate soldiers that fell at the Battle of Jefferson. So here, again, we have more attention to the Civil War. And of course, if you've traveled in the South, as I have, and you've been to Fredericksburg, you've been to Chancellorsville, you've been down to Charleston, you've been all of these places, and sometimes you're just passing by a road and it's like, oh, Civil War battlefield here, Civil War battlefield. Yeah, because the entire South was a Civil War battlefield. It was decimated under Sherman's march, in the Wilderness Campaign. Manassas. It's just Antietam in Maryland. So this for the South, the Civil War is an ongoing reminder of its humiliation, right? And the North, well, we had Gettysburg, right? But that's one battlefield in southern Pennsylvania, and you have to go there, especially for those who love American history and America. However, for those in the South, it is a constant reminder. All right, and here William Faulkner, a Southerner, reminds us of the obsession with the past. All right, and Miss Emily had been a tradition, a duty, a care, a hereditary obligation. All right, when Colonel Sartoris, the mayor, he fathered the edict that no Negro woman should appear in the streets without an apron, remitted her taxes. So Emily Grierson, time has stopped for Emily Grierson. There is no yesterday. There is no 10 years ago. Every single day is the way it was way back when. Right? So when she refuses to pay her taxes, she says, go see Colonel Sartoris. I'm like, well, he's been dead. Well, he said he didn't have to pay taxes. Well, that's ridiculous, but they're Southern gentlemen. They're not going to disobey Miss Emily Grierson because she is the last of the Griersons, and they're gentlemen, right? They don't want to humiliate a woman. Right, so that's the nice thing about the South, that we think about, their manners and being, noblesse oblige kind of thing. All right, so the next generation comes, and this next generation doesn't have this type of demeanor. It doesn't have this type of tradition. And so when Emily's dad dies, she doesn't even recognize that he's dead, and it's only after a while that she finally concurs and okay, whatever. But it's the little things we see in Rose for Emily that really add up to one haunting picture. And we have to get to the idea of Southern Gothic here. The South is obsessed with Gothic literature, whether it's Tennessee Williams and Streetcar Named Desire, whether it's Flannery O'Connor. And if you have not read Flannery O'Connor, two stories that you have to read immediatamente. As a Good Man Is Hard to Find, with The Misfit, and Good Country People. That those stories will haunt you for a long time. We have Edgar Allan Poe, of course. He's a Southern writer, born in Boston, but he lived a lot of time in Richmond and Baltimore, Philly too. But he had Southern sensibilities. He was not one of those Northern intellectuals like we see with Thoreau and Emerson. In fact, he hated those two. He was definitely a Southerner. And Southerners like talking about the macabre, the darker side of life. And here we have a brilliant with mental illness in Rose for Emily. All right, let's talk about this passage right here. They rose when she entered. Of course, they're gentlemen. A small, fat woman in black, with a thin gold chain descending to her waist and vanishing into her belt. Okay. So when a writer writes something that specific, you have to think it's there for a reason. Okay, there's a thin gold chain, and it vanishes into her belt. Why? Because time does not matter for a Rose for Emily. Time has stopped. That it would be stupid for the town to say, and time stopped for Emily Grierson. That's just so obvious. It's right. It's like saying a song like so obvious, like the Beatles, like, I love you, yeah, 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 love you, yeah, yeah. That's fine. It's just so obvious. A better song is, of course, Got to Get You Into My Life. But a good writer is not going to be so obvious, right? Her skeleton was small and spare. Perhaps that was why that would have been merely plumpness. In other was obesity in her. She looked bloated. like a body long submerged in motionless water. When we talk about descriptive writing, this is amazing. And that pallid hue, again, all of this is all about death. Pallid hue, being long submerged in water. Her eyes, lost in the fatty ridges of her face, looked like two small pieces of coal pressed into a lump of dough. A bad writer would say, she had dark eyes. No, this we can actually imagine and get a vivid picture. Right? Writers have to write with vivid, concrete details as they move from one face to another while visitors stated their errand. Right? Again, here we get the time factor. Then they could hear the invisible watch ticking at the end of the chain. The town notices the ticking. She does not notice the ticking. And then she says, I have no taxes in Jefferson. Colonel Sartoris explained it to me. Apologize for my southern accent there. Again, the time element here is crazy. All right, so we get to the second part here. And now that was 2 years after her father's death, and a short time after her sweetheart, the one who we believe she would marry, had deserted her. Wait a second, she died, and now we're going to 2 years after her father's death. When did the father die and the sweetheart? Who's the sweetheart? So we don't know about the sweetheart. We know about he left her or deserted her. We'll find out the truth later. But so it's in this non-linear fashion. And her father's death, she went out very little. Her sweetheart went away. People hardly saw her. A few of the ladies had the temerity to call, but were not received. She still has this Negro man who comes in and out of her house. Again, she's a Southerner. She has this Negro man. It's not slavery anymore, but it's just, African Americans working as the help. All right, and that's another good book, another good movie to watch is The Help. All right, so here we have more, and let's go to the second, the third page here. All right, and we have this Judge Stevens that's just saying, listen, we can't do anything about it. The place smells, and we can't tell a woman to her face that she smells. So they go out at night and put lime around the house to try to get rid of the smell. We don't know why there's a smell. It doesn't make any sense. We have no idea why there's a smell. At the end of the story, we realize where there's a smell. She killed Homer Barron with rat poison, kept his body inside her on her bed because he was going to leave, and said, you're not going to leave. I don't want people to leave. My daddy tried to leave, but they took him away. So here, the smell is for this rotting corpse, right? Which they don't find until the end, right? And that's just like, it just blows your mind. I'm like, I should have guessed that, all right? And the iron gray hair. There's so much to talk about here. When she wants to buy arsenic, all right? Again, the arsenic, the missing body, the smell would make sense. No, you put the numbers and the letters in a different order, and then suddenly the puzzle comes clear at the end. That's narrative structure there. That's plot. Okay. And so we have this Homer Barron here. There's so much to talk about here. I only got 15 minutes with this program. But Homer Barron, again, it's a very, Homer, the Iliad, the Odyssey, Baron, like a robber baron. So the name there is very significant, especially for being a Yankee. A big, dark, ready man with a big voice and eyes bigger than his face. Of course, we get the N-word here because it's the South, and that's just what the town would say. It's not William Faulkner's word, it's the town's word. And of course they don't like it, but they finally think Miss Emily is finally going to have a, someone to take care of her, right? And they all say, poor Emily, poor Emily, poor Emily. And then she goes to get some poison. She's really not allowed to get this, but because she's Miss Emily, she can get what she wants. Okay, and finally, in the last section, they finally get into the house, right? And look at this, a thin, acrid paw as if a tomb seemed to lie everywhere, okay? Furnished for a bridal. So her room is still set up for her wedding day, all right? This is like Miss Havisham in Charles Dickens's Great Expectations, all right? Dressing table, delicate array, man's toilet things tarnished with silver. And then the man himself lay in the bed. Notice that one sentence paragraph that is so good for emphasis. And a long white hair, the gray hair, was at her side. And right here, we saw a long strand of gray hair. That gray hair has been mentioned many times in the story. Again, mic drop.